This episode contains descriptions of suicidal thoughts and domestic abuse. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Julian Grace, and today's deep dive conversation is with photojournalist Josie Zimmer. She's here to talk about October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Now, recently, Josie did a one-on-one interview with Drea Kelly, who is a choreographer, an actress, and a domestic violence survivor. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's because Drea Kelly is the ex-wife of Grammy Award-winning artist R. Kelly, who just this year, a jury convicted R. Kelly of criminal and sex abuse charges. Josie, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Julian. I think this is such an important topic to talk about, and I'm glad that we have this platform to just kind of flesh it out for a little bit.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. Drea Kelly recently made a stop in Raleigh for a conference to empower victims of domestic violence. That room appeared to be packed. What was your initial feeling being in that room?
It was so empowering. So I got there around 2 o'clock because on Saturday there's so much stuff you do on the weekend as a photojournalist, but I love my job because I have the opportunities to experience things like this. Like I wouldn't have gone to this if I wasn't being a photojournalist. And hearing Drea Kelly talk, I've never heard of Drea Kelly before, and I've heard of R. Kelly. Obviously, everyone knows R. Kelly, but then you meet Drea Kelly, and wow, that room was so captivated with what she had to say. And I'm so glad that she had the strength and the power to talk about what she went through in her domestic violence situation.
Take us through that, her just being so transparent, because Drea Kelly shared that during her marriage with R. Kelly, she experienced physical and emotional abuse, and that at one point she contemplated suicide. Talk about that moment.
So she was talking in the room about she never thought it would be her. You know, you never think that you'll be a domestic violence victim. And, you know, it starts off, she did this, I wish I could show you the visual, but she started on one side of the room. It'll start with something small, you know, like maybe he won't let you go out with your friends or something. And then it'll keep progressing. And for her, it was like to the point where the house was in his name. The credit cards were in his name. Everything was in his name. It was so, people say just leave, and it's so much more than that. And she talked about this one situation where she was in Florida in a penthouse I can't remember if it was an apartment or a hotel, but in the top floor, there was a hurricane going on. It was just such a crazy situation. And she opened the window, was out on the balcony, and considered jumping. I can't even imagine. My heart breaks just hearing that. And she was like, you know, you've reached the bottom when your kids aren't even worth living for anymore.
When you heard that, what did you think?
God, I don't have kids, so I couldn't relate to her at that point. But just the thought of taking your own life, that your life isn't worth living anymore. You know, you have to value yourself. And just at that point, she was like, I'd rather be dead.
Josie, I think you just shoot great frames. I enjoy whenever I have the opportunity to work with you. And when I was looking at Drea Kelly address the crowd, it just looked like she was a motivational speaker. She appeared upbeat and focused on getting her message out. How would you describe her?
It takes so much strength to talk about such a vulnerable thing that happened, and especially such a famous person. You know, you say R. Kelly, everyone knows who R. Kelly is, everyone knows the songs, and the way she captivated the crowd and everyone was tuned in. She was just so strong talking about her experience, and she talked about this one experience with R. Kelly where he was like, go to the bathroom, and she knew what that meant. She knew that she was about to get yelled at. She was about to, I don't know, be physically abused, you know? And so she went to the bathroom, and usually she'll just sit on the toilet, and like she'll just take it. Just take the abuse, the physical, mental, verbal abuse. But this time she had her hand behind her back on the doorknob, ready to leave. And that just, I just cannot imagine being in that situation. Like having someone that you love, someone that you're married to. You just don't marry people, you know, you marry hopefully the love of your life. And they were together for a long time. They got married in like the 90s. And it's so scary.
You know, it was something that stuck with me, and this statistic, I think, kind of illustrates that. According to the hotline, over 1 in 3 women in the U.S. have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Drea Kelly said that is why it's so important that you just can't leave. What did she mean by that?
You just can't leave. It's not easy. You have the physical attributes of leaving. You know, you have to get, she said, she was like, what am I going to do when I need first month's rent, last month's rent? What am I going to do when I need a job, a place to stay? And you have the physical things, like the roof over your head, but then you also have the emotional aspect. You know, you love this person. You just can't leave them. I'm sure they've groomed and manipulated you to where leaving just doesn't seem like an option. You seem like you're in a dark hole and no ladder.
So you have to have a plan in place. All right, we'll be right back after the break with photojournalist Josie Zimmer. And when we come back, Josie, I want to talk about the audience's reaction to Drea's speech because you talked with one woman right after the event wrapped up. We'll talk about that when we come back. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with photojournalist Josie Zimmer about Domestic Violence Month and her one-on-one interview with Drea Kelly, the ex-wife of Grammy Award-winning artist R. Kelly, who was convicted of sex abuse charges. Josie, you talked with a woman that listened to Kelly talk, Drea Kelly, that is, talk. What was her response after the event wrapped up?
The whole event, there were domestic violence survivors in the crowd. And so when I got there, I asked the woman that we were the press contact for, and I was like, is it okay to film the crowd? Because I don't want to invade their privacy. These are survivors, and some people don't want to be out there like that. Some people don't want to be seen as a domestic abuse victim or survivor. They just don't want that to be a part of their life. And I'm so happy that this woman was able to talk to me. And the press contact lady, she was like, it's fine. These women, they're okay with being filmed. And so afterwards, they had this woman for me to talk to that is also a domestic violence abuse survivor, excuse me. And she was basically empowered about it. And I think it's so important that women like Drea Kelly and men, there's also men that experience domestic violence, speak out about their experiences, because when you speak out, it might inspire someone else to go get help. And that was what that woman that I interviewed talked about, was that she was empowered by Drea Kelly. Just what she said and how she said it and how she overcame, and successful woman now, you know, and so, yeah.
I watched that interview with the domestic violence survivor, and after it was done, she appeared to me that she was determined to get the message out that there are options available. If you need help, you can get help now.
And it's so important to have that community around you, and people like Drea Kelly, I'm sure she has a circle, you know, but my heart breaks for those people that it's like hard for them to find a community to fall back on. You know, like I'm sure Drea Kelly has a solid circle, and but not everyone has that luxury of having those people to fall back on. And so it's so important to have that community, because when you leave, maybe your abuser was so controlling, he just took everything.
Drea Kelly also said that believing in yourself is part of the ways to get out and get help. And I think she kind of compared herself from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And she says a butterfly doesn't go back to being a caterpillar. What did you think about that message?
She said in that situation, because I've rewatched the package last night, and she was like, don't let you being a victim take over you being a survivor. So it was, the caterpillar was necessarily the victim, but you were able to overcome the abusive situation and turn into this beautiful butterfly of being a survivor. So it's like you're a victim, yes, and what happened to you is bad, yes, not trying to take that away. Like that it's definitely something that happened, but now you've overcome it and you're living a better life and you're that beautiful butterfly now.
Josie, whenever I'm on a story with you, I always feel like you're constantly thinking outside the box and you're showing empathy. Just in your description on going to this event, and you went to the organizers first before you shot one single frame of video and said, is it okay for the people in this audience to be on camera? Because I know there are some victims there. How were you prepared for that? Because you told me in college this was something that you were fighting.
Like I said at the beginning, I love my job because I get to do things like this. I get to go to the domestic violence speech and hear from survivors. And I always want to be mindful of the situation that I'm in because they're so gracious to let me in and let me tell their story. And I don't take that lightly, especially with something like this where it's domestic violence. And in college, I was an advocate for domestic violence with the Take Back the Night, where we would go march around the school with signs to bring awareness to domestic violence. And that's what October is about. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so when I heard that I was going to do this story, our assignment desk editor, Jamila, was like, hey, there's this event going on with Drea Kelly that's a domestic violence survivor, and she's going to talk about domestic violence and homelessness. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity to really put the word out about domestic violence and get it in some people's ears, because the more people that know, more people that come forward, hopefully more will be done about it.
If there was one takeaway you can take from Drea's speech, what would it be?
Just because you're a domestic violence victim doesn't mean that you're not strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to share a couple of things that I found from the domestic hotline on things to look out for in a domestic violence situation. Someone showing extreme jealousy or trying to take you away from your friends, preventing you or discouraging you from spending time with family, or insulting, demeaning, or shaming you. Josie, thanks for spending time with us. And thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can also listen to the entire WRAL newscast in podcast form. Find WRAL Newscast in your podcast app. The feed is updated with new newscasts multiple times per day.